Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to today's realistic review in which we are taking a look at the French C.R.714 sitting at 1.7 battle rating in realistic battle. A very curious plane. If you look at the way this plane looks, it looks very strange with the low cut windows on the left and the right of the pilot. Very long nose. You've got fixed gun pylons on the left and the right. All not what you'd say be a perfect design for a fighter. The front section of the plane absolutely looks like a dreadnought front of the early warships from the Second World War. And it is a very funny looking plane, and it is also a very unforgiving plane to fly. Now that doesn't mean it's not a fun plane, because from a challenge you can also get a lot of fun, let's say. And I did just that, but it is definitely not a very forgiving plane, and it's not an easy step in plane for beginners, let's say. The maximum speed in this plane at sea level without WEP is 402 kilometers an hour, and with WEP 442. At 4500 meters still go up to 384 kilometers an hour without WEP, and 385 with WEP. And finally at 6500 meters still go up to 326 kilometers an hour both with and without WEP. So the WEP actually stops being useful before 4500 meters. It stays functional to about 3500 meters, and after that it really starts to rapidly drop off. So WEP is no use on this plane at higher altitudes, and it's definitely a plane preferably used at below 3000 meters, because then you have quite a good WEP. Because if you look at the WEP at sea level, it is 40 kilometers difference, and that is better than most planes at this battle rating when it comes to WEP. Some planes don't even have WEP at this battle rating, so there is that. So speeds is not the fastest plane in the world, let's say that, but it's not the slowest either. It's an average speed for 1.7 battle rating, and definitely not bad. The top speed in a dive is quite good, with 698 kilometers an hour before it redlines, and 760 kilometers an hour before it rips apart. Control stiffening though starts quite early already. It starts slightly at 400 kilometers an hour and becomes absolutely severe at 550, but above 600, 650 it becomes absolutely atrocious, and you have to start getting out of a dive at 625. Trust me on that, otherwise you'll crash into the ground if you're anywhere near to the ground, because it takes a freaking long time to pull this plane out of a dive from 650, let's say. So terrible stiffening, especially in the roll rate, but also in the elevator. Really stiff elevator when it comes to that on those speeds. The stall speed in the plane is 165, which is not particularly good, below average. It's a little bit of a heavy plane. The power to weight ratio is not fantastic in this plane. That also translates into bad climb rate. Firepower first though. The firepower is decent in the plane. You are running with 4 7.5mm Mach 1934 machine guns with 300 rounds per gun, which is also quite alright. I used stealth rounds for those. Ammo load is good, firepower decent. Now let's go to the performance of the plane. The acceleration in the plane in a straight line is bad. In a dive it's decent because the plane is quite heavy, so eventually that will start going into the acceleration in a dive. But in a straight line it's absolutely bad. The energy retention in the horizontal is excellent. Yeah, if you come from a dive and you equip WEP, especially below 3000 meters, put her in a straight line, she will almost not lose any speed. And that will give you the opportunity to run away from most people if you hold a little bit of altitude on her. Because as I said, the top speeds in a straight line, the maximum speeds are nothing spectacular. But the energy retention in a straight line is one of the main strengths of this plane. If you have to make an escape, take her down to 2000 or 1000 meters or even sea level, use WEP, put it in a straight line, and she will hold that speed for a very long time. In the vertical, the energy retention is still decent. The plane is made to keep its speed very nicely, but of course, like I said before, the power to weight ratio is not fantastic. So there is that, making it a little bit less good in the vertical compared to the excellent energy retention in the horizontal. Anyway, the climb rate is bad, like I said, so it's difficult to get up to altitude. There is always 109s above you, and you do need to extensively side climb. Yeah, so there is that to take into account. The turn time is very bad, and bad with flaps. The flaps do rip off already at 370 kilometers an hour though, so that's never a safe thing, especially not below 3000 meters, where the speeds usually lie around 400 kilometers an hour in a straight line. You can already rip the flaps off then, so be careful with the flap usage. Watch your speeds when you use them, and it still only improves the turn time to bad in this plane, from very bad without flaps. So it's absolutely not a turn fighter. It is absolutely difficult to boom and zoom in the plane as well, and the energy fighting also is not fantastic due to the acceleration not being fantastic. The energy retention is good though, so there is that, but you have precious little to work with in this plane, let's say. The roll rate is decent to good, depending on the speed and the altitude. Nothing to complain about. The roll rate, absolutely, it's nice. Maneuverability overall is still below average though. If you look at the turn time, the roll rate does not compensate for that. So it's not a 190. but still, roll rate is decent to good. Overheating in the plane is not an issue. I've abused it many times, the web, and there is that. Not an issue, so that's nice. You can use web a lot, and that's especially good below 3000 meters. Durability in the plane is good, and it can take a hit or two. There is that. Now, it's very difficult to describe this plane in the role as you want to use it. It is a below average jack of no trade. A below average jack of no trades. I mean, it's not a turn fighter. Like I said, the turn time is very bad, and although the roll rate is nice in defensive flying, that can be alright. But yeah, the overall maneuverability is still not good, so definitely not a turn fighter. It's not an energy fighter either, due to the acceleration being bad. And, well, not in a dive, of course, where the weight comes in as well. But power to weight ratio is not good, so that is definitely not a good thing for energy fighting. And boom and zooming is also made difficult because of the control stiffening in this plane, which is really bad both in the roll rate and the elevator, which really all compress, especially above 600 kilometers an hour. But at 550 the roll rate is already atrocious, and at 600, 650 the elevator is terrible, and it's very difficult to get her out of a dive. Then it takes a lot of altitude to get the plane out of the dive at those speeds, so you gotta start early and you gotta be aware of it. One of the main things in this plane is the energy retention, and I'm gonna give you an example of that here with this guy. Very good guy. He got 6 kills in this match, and a level 100 player with decent good stats, let's say. So a guy who absolutely knew what he was doing, and he's in a much better plane in most aspects than me, let's say. More maneuverable, better energy retention in the vertical, let's say, better energy fighter, and also less compression in that plane, although that plane also has its downsides, let's say. But I had to keep the plane in a straight line here, keep my speed with the energy retention, and just run away for a bit, because maneuvering with a Heinkel 112 in this plane is absolutely a no-go. So you're looking at a better plane, and you got to make use of what you have. Now in this plane that is precious little, the roll rate of course is nice, as I am making use of that roll rate here to avoid the incoming shots, and the energy retention is particularly nice, and those are definitely areas in which you can defeat most planes at this battle rating with this plane: roll rate and energy retention. And of course that doesn't make it easy. I mean, energy retention has got to be built up first. You first got to make energy by getting altitude and then diving down for speed, and once you have the speed, this plane can hold it very well. And acceleration in a dive is decent, but you still need a little bit of altitude to get this plane rolling, let's say. The initial acceleration is nothing spectacular. the long run acceleration in this plane is much better because of the weight of the plane. It's a very peculiar plane, I have to say. I mean, a fighter usually is easily set in one of the roles, or maybe two, or all of the roles, or jack of all trades that does everything decently well. But this plane is absolutely terrible at turn fighting. It is not a good energy fighter, and the boom and zooming in the long run is also difficult. So short boom and zoom runs in this plane is alright. And you got to hold the energy advantage. As long as you have the energy advantage in this plane, you can use it in vertical maneuvers, as we just did with the Heinkel 112. I had better energy than him, and thus I could keep this fight up, let's say. There is that, and if you come into a pickle where you get outturned or you have trouble, then you can run away and hold the speed and run away from pretty much anything, which is quite nice. I get the plane eventually, shoot him down. I stopped his run from 6 kills, and that guy gets killed, and our tickets were absolutely nothing left. So if that guy would have dropped one bomb, we would have been dead. So it was a nice turnaround in the end. And it just came alright just at the very ending there. But we were losing on tickets the whole time. Let's see, we've got final blow, 19,000 Silver Lions and 4,000 research points. 4 kills in this match and a first place. I'll see you in the conclusion. Hey guys, so here we are after the match. Now, an absolutely interesting plane. If you look at this design, it looks like a dreadnought from the First World War. Absolutely, look at that front. You could just place that on a on a dreadnought from the First World War, no problem. But yeah, interesting plane. Let's say it's completely unforgiving. It's a difficult plane to fly. But it's fun. And why did I find it fun? I think it's mainly because of the challenge. This plane does present a challenge, and it has little to work with. It excels at nothing except energy retention. It is good in the roll rate, and well, you have decent firepower. The ammo load is alright, but the performance, the speed, performance in a dive, handling in a dive, there is a lot of things that are not spectacular on this plane, and that is still positive if I say not spectacular. There's some very bad aspects to this plane, but it is fun to try to use the few good things this plane has, and then go into matches like the last one and get into a duel with that guy, and then still come out on top with a plane that only has very few good sides. So absolutely a challenge. I would not recommend it for beginners. I would point you to other planes in the French line and skip this as much as possible. There are better planes to get used to realistic battle and get into the French line with a smile on your face. But if you get a little bit more advanced, this is definitely a plane that can be fun and can present you with a challenge. And there is always that, which is good to become a better pilot. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.